going to be presenting a short dice moment to you guys today about students with disabilities. In particular, a recent publication that came out in the Journal of Chemical Education relates to a new application available to students to download and use in chemistry experiments. It allows students with visual impairments or color blindness to be able to see colors in laboratory experiments, as they are very common. So this will allow them to be included in these experiments rather than excluded. This can make a huge difference to students when they're in the lab, and new resources like this are coming out all the time in the literature. So if you're not aware of this, please do keep an eye on the literature and the new resources available. So this is a quick example of some researchers from who have disabilities who have contributed to the periodic table of elements. Of course, there are many contributions that scientists with disabilities have done towards the fields of chemistry, but this is just highlighting a few. So most of this information, as well as this table, came from the American Chemical Society's manual for teaching to students with disabilities. If you haven't read that before, I highly recommend you do read it. So one common misconception, unfortunately, that tends to come from students with disabilities is that there can be an unsafe work environment. And this simply is not true. It's been proven to actually be untrue in multiple publications. In fact, in academic and industry settings, it's been shown that scientists with disabilities can work safely in a laboratory environment and do. So here I'm just highlighting a few examples of some disabilities that students may have. So one example is limited mobility. Students with limited mobility should have access to laboratories. So this is required by federal law. There should be some sort of setup for students in labs to participate who have limited mobility. There are plenty of assistive technologies as well, and physical aids towards these students. In addition, those with visual impairments, there are plenty of assistive technologies as well. As I had mentioned before, the new publication that came out for colorblindness specifically. And if there's any instrumentation or safety information that's in laboratories that's accessible to students with perfect eyesight, this should also be accessible to students with limited or visual impairments. And finally, students with learning disabilities, there are plenty of resources and practices towards including these students in classroom environments or laboratories. And I'd like to highlight that students with learning disabilities can really excel in the lab. So please, if you have any of these implicit biases against students with disabilities, please try and note that and reflect upon it for the future. And if you take anything away from this short dice moment, I hope it's that we are more inclusive towards students with disabilities, whether it be in classroom or laboratory environments, as well as other candidates with disabilities in our own personal chemical research.